Now, somebody who I wanted to get your thoughts on, who I hope will be wearing a Manchester United shirt soon, Elliot Anderson. We talked about the Brighton game. Belieber, bless him. It was not the best audition. I think Elliot Anderson was the complete opposite. I thought that he was absolutely sensational. We touched on this a little bit last week. You might have, left by that point. I'm not too sure. But I wanted to get your thoughts, both of you, A, on the performance, and also this conversation about him being a £100 million plus player. For me, I really do believe that if this vein of form continues, if he's at the World Cup and he's takes England on an amazing journey to a semi-final, to a final, I'm not going to say, England win it with him, but, is he worth that kind of money? Is that just the world that we live in now, that there are players that are over £100 million and he actually could fulfil that and actually be worth that price tag?
Well, first and foremost, he will be at the World Cup, and he will be starting for England, barring any dramatic slump in form or injury, because he's so important for Declan Rice. Very similar to what Zubimendi does at Arsenal.
Another £1 million player.
Yeah, exactly. But just by being there, both Zubimendi and Anderson free Rice up to really impose himself at the top end of the pitch, which is not something we've always seen from him. I know our own Stuart Pearce, when he was coaching, Declan Rice felt he had that capability, and we're seeing it now. But in answer to your question, it goes back to the striker debate, really. I remember speaking to someone very senior at another Premier League club when United paid that money for Šeško, and I said, look, is this guy worth what's being paid? And he said, well, that is the going rate for a centre-forward. Look at Gyökeres, look at Ugo Ekitike, who again was unproven, and you've got to say has come in and did hit the ground running at Liverpool, and obviously Šeško's in that bracket as well. And it's the same for midfielders. Declan Rice, 105 million, looks a bargain to me. Moises Caicedo, 115 million. I think if Adam Wharton goes, providing he can stop getting injured, which is happening quite a lot, he's going to be a £100 million player. And I think Elliot Anderson will be as well, particularly if he does take the World Cup by storm. So I've never been over fussed by transfer fees.
No.
It's not coming out of your wallet, is it, Crookie?
Well,
you could afford it, by the way. You could afford an Adam Wharton, couldn't you?
But could you not chip in a bit?
But pay the fee, because that is a position. I sound like a broken record, because I've been talking about this literally for years. That is the one position of the team that United have neglected since Michael Carrick, that midfield role. And it's so important in modern football. Name me a team in Europe, not just the Premier League, that are winning games week in, week out without a top-class midfielder. We're lacking behind.
Yeah, exactly. And the importance of a midfield signing for Manchester United in particular is perfect the example of Michael Carrick. I think the season before they signed him, they finished so far behind. They made that one signing, everyone, I remember saying, that's not going to be enough. You've just signed an English midfielder, and then they win the next season by a canter. So it just highlights the importance of that midfield, as you've already said there, Crookie, that despite them trying all sorts with the McFred era and all that kind of stuff over the years, the good old days, we didn't know what we had, did we? But they've tried so much. But you're right, that is the one position where you look at Manchester United, you think, they really need not just a player or a body in there, they need the person in
someone
there.
who's going to dominate games.
Yeah, exactly.
That. Anderson's got the ability to do that.
And also in terms of the price tag, look, I'm the same. That's just the nature of the beast at the moment in terms of the price tag in football. But you add in two factors when it comes to not just a midfield signing. The fact that he's English, that will always add a little bit more money, and then you add the Man United tax. So you could probably add another 30-40 million onto that when it should probably be about 70 million odd. But as I've said, when you factor in all of the different facets to an individual like this, he's got age on his side. He looks like he's so calm under pressure, and that's everything that Man United are missing in the heart of midfield, isn't it? So yeah, that'd be incredible.
Well, talking about our midfield, one player that we've been discussing a lot is, of course, Kobbie Mainoo. Now, I was booked and busy last night. I was filling in for Alex Crook because this
big shoes to fill. Big shoes.
Huge shoes.
Did you fill it in a bar tab?
No, because I was being a little bit more professional than you, and I only had one drink until I'd finished working. Thank you very much.
Very impressive.
But yes, I was at the Northwest Football Awards on the green carpet. Did it have a green carpet when you went?
Maybe.
Yeah, it was a
Can't remember, can
carpet.
you? It must have been a good event, Crookie.
Just about remembers getting home, don't you? Well, no, it was actually at the Manchester Deansgate Hotel, which is where we were at the Soccer Aid after party.
Is that the one I got you into?
No, you didn't. This is a conversation for another day because Alex Crook claims that he got us all in. He left us. You know, like if you're at the queue going into a club or something, and then your mate gets VIP and they just jump ahead. But oh, did you not get in? Sorry, that was the vibe. But nevertheless, we had great memories that night. We got pictures with Nemanja Vidic, Edwin van der Sar, Michael Carrick. The picture you took of me was horrible, but the one I took of you was great. We had a great time. So it was good memories to be back there. And I caught up with the one and only Brian Robson. And we spoke about a few things, but listen to what he's had to say about Kobbie Mainoo because he wants to see him playing more.
I'd like to see Mainoo get a little bit more of game time because I think he's a really talented player, but he needs games, and otherwise you've got a player who's coming through the ranks who could be your answer.
And would be very important for England as well when you think about it.
I mean, last year he got like a few injuries, didn't get into top form, but the year before, the last 6 months of the season, he was outstanding. So you've just got to get that confidence back into him, get the fitness back into him, and I think he could be a really good player.
Crookie, we need to be seeing him more. That's what we've all been saying, isn't it?
Listen, I'm the most paid up member of the Kobbie Mainoo fan club there is. I spent the whole of the Euros telling anyone who would listen that Kobbie Mainoo was the solution to England's midfield problem, and so it transpired because he comes into the team and ends up staying there all the way through until that final defeat to Spain. You listen to Brian Robson there, he's someone who knows about the fabric and the tradition of Manchester United, the importance on youth players coming into the team. He was there when the class of 96 burst onto the scene and helped guide people like Paul Scholes and Gary Neville and David Beckham to having the careers that they have had. And I think Kobbie has still got that potential. You know, we've been talking about problems in midfield. I think he's got the full package. Yes, there are facets to his game that he can work on, but you can't do that on the training pitch. The only way you can really do that is by playing more regularly. I think the fact United are already out of the League Cup and no European football has been a big negative for Kobbie because he would certainly have got game time in those competitions. But at some point, I would still like to see Ruben Amorim put faith in him in midfield because I think it would be a real shame if this talent goes to waste.
And you mentioned there Ruben Amorim, which is a really, really annoying thing for me because he came out at the start of the season and he said that, look, Kobbie, great player, etc., but he is fighting for his position with Bruno Fernandes. I think that's...
How can you fight with the captain?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mr. Undroppable, not just at Man United, but in the Premier League,
the
right?
guy who's he's not played for like he's not been available for 2 games because of injury as well.
Exactly. And you actually break it down and you look into it and, I might have got this mistaken, but he said by that logic that Mainoo is going to be playing for Fernandes' position. But unless my memory has served me incorrectly, the only time this season that Kobbie's played and Fernandes hasn't was the first half against Grimsby. Yeah. Every other time that Kobbie's got any minutes, Bruno's on the pitch. So what was his thought process from saying that in the first place? Was he just simply lying? Was he just essentially admitting that he doesn't really have an idea of what he's going to do because he understands that this academy record that Man United have got constantly and consistently naming someone from the academy in the squad. He doesn't want to be the one to break that. So he knows he has to keep Kobbie on side in some aspect. But the fact that he said that he's fighting with the most undroppable player in the Premier League, for me, that is the writing on the wall because... And I think it is a bit of a downfall in Ruben Amorim. If you can't get the best out of a player...
Do you think that's it, that he doesn't know how to get the best out of him, if we're being completely honest?
I think he does, but he also realises that he'll have to drop Bruno Fernandes and he's not going to do that. So, it's either you make the decision of saying, look, Kobbie, you may have to leave in order to get minutes. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just a normal season. You factor in the stuff you were saying there, Crookie, about the lack of games and opportunity to really burst into that starting 11. And then also the fact there's a World Cup at the end of the season. So he needs to play. And at the end of the day, I understand it. I love him. I'm the exact same. I would love to see him not just be in the midfield, but one day be United's captain. He gets it. He understands what it means to play for that club. But if he's not playing, what do you expect a player of that talent to do? Just rot away on the bench? I'm sorry, but for the benefit of the young boy's career, he could start at a World Cup for his country. This isn't playing against Grimsby away in the League Cup. This is the big league. So I just think there's only one solution this is going to be, is him going to leave, because Bruno Fernandes, unless he's sold, is not going to be dropped from that starting 11.
Crookie, as our in-house transfer guru, talk about this move to Napoli. Is there anything concrete in an actual departure, or is it too soon to tell?
Well, the interest from Napoli was there in the summer, and he was desperate to get out. I think I can say that with some certainty. But United very quickly closed the door on any kind of exit. And I feel like it might be history repeating in January. Napoli will be there again. There'll be other clubs in Europe. Crystal Palace got a mention to me the other day. Newcastle, I know I've got long-term admiration for Kobbie Mainoo as well, and maybe would like to reinforce their squad. But I don't think United are in a hurry to let him get out the door. And what you've got there is a frustrated player who's kicking his heels and no doubt becoming more and more unhappy by the week. Didn't even get off the bench against Forest at the weekend. So it's a real conundrum. But unless they can source a replacement, I think the squad is too threadbare for them to even entertain the idea of him going out.
So do you think that's the only reason why they're not going to let him go is because just essentially bodies and numbers in the squad?
Yeah, no, I think the point you make
or...
about always having an academy graduate on the bench is pertinent as well, because there's not tons of them, is there?
No.
So Kobbie is important in that respect, because you're right. Ruben Amorim, he's set a few unwanted records already. He certainly won't want that on his CV.
Who would have thought that Kobbie would be a token selection in the squad a couple of years ago?
This is the wild thing, and you look at the player that we were talking about earlier. Someone like Carreras, who is his potential. And like you say, Anil, there are different things that goes on with this, but this is a player that we had whose potential wasn't completely unlocked. With Kobbie, is he going to end up in a similar situation here, maybe, where he isn't used in the right way at Manchester United, and he goes off somewhere and is a superstar?
Yeah, well, I think it was last season in a game in the Europa League where he played a little bit further forward, didn't he? And then Amorim came out and said, right, this is what he's really good at, isn't it? Going forward, making things happen, being in and around the box. And then, he's in competition with Bruno Fernandes, who's been dropped deeper. So again, where's the logic behind that? And I don't want this to seem like it's just an excuse to bash Amorim. At the end of the day, this is not just any player. This is not just, an individual that's come through the academy or, a £30 million signing. This was the individual that we looked at after that FA Cup final, which he got man of the match in, by the way, as we're okay. This Michael Carrick conundrum over the years has finally been solved, and we haven't spent a penny doing it. He's naturally found his calling, essentially. But, the way that things can change so quickly in football, it's scary. And like I said, there's so many different factors that are going to put pressure on Kobbie to want minutes. And like you said, one game a week now until the new year. Where's that opportunity going to come for him to show that he is good enough?
Yeah, but I mean, this for me, it's Amorim's key failure at Old Trafford, surely, that he's not been able to get this right with Kobbie Mainoo.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just quickly, Crook. I think the situation with Garnacho, I think we're all in unison that he had to be sold eventually.
That's an attitude problem,
exactly.
yeah.
You think, right, okay, you did have potential, you did have something there, raw talent, but your attitude...
let your brother run wild on Instagram,
exactly.
and yeah.
Exactly, so we can understand why you've let that go. But Kobbie, come on, you can't surely put him in the same category as Garnacho because he just wants to play football. This is a kid who's hungry. I can't believe they're not utilising him.
No, I think you're right when you say, it's a big failure on the manager, and credit to Kobbie, because obviously there's a few academy graduates who've gone out the door. Rashford pulling up trees at Barcelona, Garnacho not pulling up trees at Chelsea, but in both cases you can understand why Ruben Amorim wanted to get rid of them. We can't fathom why he doesn't have any trust in Kobbie Mainoo, and unlike the other two, he's not causing any problems, is there? There's no histrionics. He's not come out publicly and asked to leave, even though we know that he all wants to. He hasn't sulked when he has had his opportunity. He's not always been able to seize it, because I think he's suffering from the fact he knows the manager doesn't really trust him, doesn't have confidence in his ability. It's a really sad situation. It'll be less talked about the more successful United are, but if we start losing games again, it'll be definitely a stick to beat the manager with.